What's up, fam? It's your boy Demuir here, purveyor of all sounds underground. Thank you for joining me on my YouTube channel today, where I'll be sharing just my own personal thoughts on what will be happening within the dance music industry in the future, and I guess now, considering we're in this pandemic thing. But before we jump into things, what I need from you is that SLC, hit subscribe, like, comment, and more importantly, hit the notifications bell to stay in touch with the new videos that we have up and coming. All right, so let's jump into it. I've had some considerable time to think about this, just like you, over the last 5 to 6 months, about where do I see things going or what's happening within our dance music industry. And it takes me back to our good old common denominator friend when it comes to the pandemic, Bill Gates. Point number one is Bill Gates wrote an interesting paper back in January of 1996 where he basically said content is king. As a result of the internet and the other systems that would be developed from those protocols, content will be the thing that will always distinguish people and businesses and will always be fulfilling a need of some sort when it comes to generating profitability. So I absolutely agree with that. From a content perspective, I've shifted my focus a little bit, and you've probably seen a lot of other guys doing this too. There's much more streaming going on. I am particular on Patreon, where I just think that is just the right platform to sell exclusive content and interact with fans directly. And people have different ways of looking at this, but at the end of the day, ownership in content is key. So Bill Gates was absolutely spot on with this one, and hopefully not the other stuff. So that bleeds into my second point, which is ownership is so much more, how can I put it? It is so much more prevalent and much more important. I cannot stress it enough. I've been through the throes of getting a lot of my masters back, and thankfully a lot of labels have been cooperative in giving me my masters, and part of it is just because I was so diligent with how the contracts were set up. They're mainly licensing contracts where there's a certain term that allowed a label to put out my stuff, and then once that term was done, I knocked on the door and said, okay, I'm taking those masters back and I'm going to redistribute them in a different way and different manners that allowed me to make the content fresh and more in demand in today's climate. So ownership is key in everything and anything that you do in this industry from this point on, if you haven't caught on to that yet. Point number 3, PR is dead. And what I mean by this is public relations in terms of the business model where DJs and other artists have been actively seeking out certain PR agencies and paying them ridiculous amounts of money to try and get into certain publications or get that, certain interview or get on that radio station where they're playing your tracks. I think those days are done, and if not, they've taken a severe beating as a result of the pandemic, simply because people are not doing the things that we used to do before. So when you had a bunch of festivals going on and lots of music coming and churning pretty much every week, and magazines needing to do reviews and getting those out to pump through a certain narrative, I think a lot of people are stepping back and saying, well, wait, if I have direct access to this artist and that organization, why do I need to necessarily look at some of these publications? And by any means, I'm not trying to say, discriminate or show prejudice to those in an unfavorable way. I'm just being real with it. A lot of people today in other parts of their lives are able to direct what type of content they want. So if you look at Netflix, people watch certain videos and then Netflix pushes, here's the other stuff we think you'll be interested in. When it comes to the music industry, I've certainly made the observation where I can bundle up certain music packages and video and streaming and other types of content, and people say, yeah, that's the stuff I want. Keep giving me more of that. They didn't need certain media telling them what it was that they wanted. And this is in addition to the fact that there's been a lot of good discussion on race and what sort of narrative a lot of different publications have been pushing forward. Dance music isn't this young white male person. It is a diverse group of people, and when you look at the roots of the music, you'll know that it's predominantly black. And I'm not saying that to be biased because I am obviously black. What I'm talking about is the facts and where the music comes from and how it's evolved. So challenging those narratives that were generally pushed by certain media and functions, or tentacles that came from those media devices are changing, and content and ownership are driving that narrative. So point number 4 is to ensure you have multiple streams of income. I just think things are going this way. As an artist and a person that owns their own publishing and have people collecting on my publishing and generating my own specific content for people that are subscribing for such content, it is generally going in this direction of me needing to be on multiple platforms. And when I'm on those multiple platforms, being YouTube, Discord, Patreon, what else are we on one? We done the Twitch thing. When I'm on each of these different platforms, the first thing I'm thinking about is how do I monetize this stuff? Because the climate today, underscored by the pandemic, has pushed us to start thinking this way. So you can't just pull out a track and say, okay, I'm done. Let the label handle it. I'm good. It doesn't even work that way. You're probably not even going to see any money from such an interaction. You got to have multiple avenues going and make sure you come up with a succinct plan that has each of the avenues connecting in a way that's profitable to you. So point number 5 is to not bank heavily on perception. So if you consider my previous point on PR and its media impact and the narrative that it was pushing, and I think as a result of the pandemic, where it's forcing people to just sit down with themselves and rethink their business model, the whole perception model that a lot of people banked on, where it looked like they were busy, pretty much not doing anything, hiring multiple ghost producers to put music out that really wasn't theirs. I think those days are starting to chop down, because when people could actually see the people that are producing, really making the music, making unique content for their audience, and then they look across and say, well, what the fuck were you doing all this time? It was just a perception of things. That will really change the narrative. And I think, it goes back to what Bill Gates was saying in terms of content being king. When people can program specifically what they're looking for and how they want to get it, this whole perception act kind of goes away or dwindles a bit. And there you have it. Those are my top 5 thoughts on where I see the dance music at today amidst this pandemic. Let me know what your thoughts. I'd love to join the conversation with you. Once you comment, I usually get quite involved within the first 24 to 48 hours of us posting these videos. And more importantly, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and notifications to stay in touch with the new videos that we have up and coming. Much love and respect to you. Peace.